On August 7th, 1828, I took the liberty of calling at the residence of Mr. Ernest Dawes, whom my newspaper editor had asked me to interview. Mr. Dawes was a literary critic and a friend of many writers. I had been assigned to write a series of articles about English romantic writers for the London Review, and hoped to get some first-hand information from Mr. Dawes. I began by asking him about Lord Byron, the leading romantic writer. Mr. Dawes remembered the poet very well. He called Byron a true romantic, devoted to freedom, the brotherhood of man, and the creation of a better world. But literature is more than men and works, Mr. Dawes told me. It is history, too.
Our history, Mr. Sims, the history of the late 18th and early 19th centuries, is one of revolution in literature and politics. Byron says it most aptly in his poem Don Juan. "Let there be light," said God, and there was light. "Let there be blood," says man, and there's a sea. Blood for freedom, for human dignity. You might take those words down, Mr. Sims. Our age will be remembered as one when men fought for freedom. Think back, Mr. Sims, to 1776. In the American colonies, men achieved independence through revolution. And remember, Mr. Sims, that the American Revolution started with the publishing of ideas. You'll find them in the writings of Paine, Jefferson, and other freedom-loving men. In France, the writer Rousseau expressed similar ideas on liberty. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. The chains were broken during the French Revolution. A new France was born, a France whose motto was liberty, equality, brotherhood. And what of our brothers, Mr. Sims? The Irish. Revolution has struck close to us, too. The Irish have fought for independence from England. 3 revolutions: American, French, Irish. 3 revolutions for freedom within our own lifetime. Yet here in England, I read in our papers of freedom being lost through another kind of revolution. The Industrial Revolution. I fear our factory system leads to slavery, not freedom. Even children are oppressed. For many English workers, the Industrial Revolution offers little freedom. With these 4 revolutions in mind, Mr. Sims, we can talk about the Literary Revolution. This revolution takes as its motto, individual self-expression. What does this mean? Now, sir, what do you see when you look out upon the world? Trees, flowers, people? Perhaps. But to those writers whom we call romantics or revolutionaries, the world becomes much more. The romantic sees the world and people personally. He uses powerful emotional words to describe what he sees and feels. The everyday things we see are seen differently by the romantic writer. His world is one where every man is part of a vast brotherhood of men pledged to freedom and liberty. When I speak of brotherhood, I think at once of Robert Burns. Burns was as simple, humble, and dignified as the country life he lived. I never met him, but have often imagined this farm lad, Robbie Burns, observing all God's creatures and coming to love them. He felt an especial fondness for his native Scotland and his neighbors. In fact, Mr. Sims, he loved all men. Burns expressed his feelings in the lines, "It's coming yet, for all that man to man the world o'er shall brothers be, for all that." So Burns sounded the plea of the Romantics for brotherhood. Today, William Wordsworth expresses the same belief. We have, all of us, he says, one human heart. Last week I spent an afternoon with Wordsworth at his cottage home. We spoke of the brotherhood of man and of poetry. As we crossed his favorite brook, Wordsworth explained the subject matter of his poetry by saying he was interested in men's feelings and thoughts. The mind of man, my haunt, and the main region of my song. He said that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion, recollected in tranquility. Wordsworth draws inspiration for his poetry from the real life of the region he knows and loves. Very different are the visionary dream worlds of the romantic writers we call mystics. Remember Samuel Taylor Coleridge's vision of the imaginary city of Xanadu? In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. Men who dream and write of such visions are called mystics. Another of these writers, a little older than Coleridge, was William Blake. In his poem, The Divine Image, Blake is telling us that the divine image is any man who helps those less fortunate than himself. By kind deeds, a better world could be made. In his poem, Blake tells of man's highest qualities. Mercy, pity, peace, and love is man. These lines reflect Blake's hope for a sympathetic and enlightened society. But there were moments when the mystic felt he could not face the real world. Blake wrote, "O Father, what do we here in this land of unbelief and fear? The land of dreams is better far, above the light of the morning star." But we don't live in a world of dreams, eh, Mr. Sims? I've seen too many wars, too much bloodshed to believe that. We can try, however, to make a better world. Well, take that down, Mr. Sims, for that is what some of our romantics have attempted to do, sometimes using tones of rage and anger. Furiously, the poetry of Lord Byron points toward a better world. He was once described as mad, bad, and dangerous to know. Byron, a true revolutionary, had a keen sense of social justice. To the oppressed factory workers, to the oppressed everywhere, Byron cried, "Hereditary bondsmen, know ye not who would be free themselves must strike the blow?" Byron's been dead several years now. I visited his home at Newstead Abbey the other day, a house filled with memories. There, in Byron's study, I was reminded of the man I knew. He was indifferent to what people thought of him as he went about creating his better world. Proudly he declared, "I have not loved the world, nor the world me. I have not flattered its rank breath, nor bowed to its idolatries a patient knee." Very similar in spirit and thought is the poetry of Percy Bysshe Shelley. I remember reading the manuscript of Shelley's Prometheus Unbound, in which he expresses the philosophy of most romantics, what they think, how they feel. To suffer woes which hope thinks infinite, to forgive wrongs darker than death or night, to defy power, to love and bear, to hope neither to change nor falter nor repent. This is to be good, great and joyous, beautiful and free. Those lines, I think, Mr. Sims, are the life's blood of Romanticism.
Dawes now told me of those romantics writing for the sake of romance alone.
What kind of romance? The romance of bygone days and things. The romance of beauty in nature. Take John Keats, who in his poetry could distill the very essence of beauty. The beauty which is truth. The beauty of a human being. Or the beauty of a Grecian urn. My friend Sir Walter Scott is also inspired by the romance of another world and another time. People of medieval England and Scotland lived in Scott's poems and novels. In works such as Ivanhoe and Rob Roy, Scott created a world of action, a world in which evil was set down and good and beauty triumphed. In many ways, the people of Scott's novels reflect some of the ideals of our romantic writers. Writers who are part of a vast brotherhood of men pledged to freedom, liberty, and the welfare of their fellow men. A great, great period in the history of English literature, this romantic period, Mr. Sims. I only wish we had time to discuss the many other romantic writers.
As Dawes finished speaking, I realized the hour had grown late, and after thanking Dawes and telling him I'd sent him copies of my articles, I took my leave. My thoughts were filled with the ideals of the romantics. They are men who envision in their works a better world, a world in which beauty, brotherhood, and human dignity gain recognition. Shelley once said, "Poets are the legislators of the world." Perhaps our romantic writers have indeed legislated